gracing us with her presence, Miss Habiba Kahinde. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you. Thanks. It's really nice to see you guys again.
So without much ado, I want to welcome Camilla Nontra.
Yay!
Oh my goodness. I should come to you every day when I need.
Correct. This is Sudan.
Wow.
Sudan. Believe it or not, Sudan has more pyramids than Egypt.
Interesting.
Begin to think in a Pan-African way, because they now see that their conditions are not just about that local space, but the condition is linked to all of the other.
Hello. Welcome to our show, the Pan-Africana show. Thanks for joining us this morning. I see some of us live. My name is Fred Nontra, co-host here with H McCoy.
What's going on, man?
Yeah, I want to start by first acknowledging while we are alive and well. We thank God for today that we are alive and well. By Him we live, we move, and have our being. Well, I want to start off. We have a special show, but before that, I want to start off by acknowledging what happened this week. If you're aware, the first president of the Fourth Republic of Ghana passed away this week. The name of Jerry John Rawlings. I mean, if you're born at certain points in the 70s, in the 80s, all you knew was Rawlings until the 2000s when we had a change in party. He came to power through the gun, through a military coup d'etat in the 70s, and then retired and actually became a civilian and ran for president and won by a landslide. He got re-elected again. So altogether, he was about 20 years in power in Ghana until he handed over in 2000. He passed away this week, and he did some good things for Ghana, and like everyone, wasn't perfect. So just wanted to acknowledge that, as Ghana plays a vital role in Pan-Africanism. All right. Well, today we have a special show. I'm gonna be chatting with my co-host Jesse. Jesse is an accomplished author. He's an author of 2. And this third book is just about to be released, and we're going to talk about that. So bring your questions coming in. I might even drop a link so you can join us for our live feed. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. All right, Jesse. So over to you. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. It's been a pretty busy week, man. So for those of you who have been following me on social media, you know this week was the trifecta. I ended up being fortunate enough to be quoted in a CNBC article, which I was not expecting. I'd done an interview weeks ago and I thought they cut it. So, but it's in there. So go to my page. You'll find the link for that. I got quoted in a Charlotte Observer article on evictions. It's kind of the work that I do. And so that was great. But the biggest thing of the week, the biggest accomplishment is Issa Rae acknowledged that I exist. And my life is complete now. Issa Rae acknowledged me on Twitter. And so I'm on cloud 9. And that brings us to our topic today. I started following Issa Rae back before she was Issa Rae, when she was just a grad from USC School of Film. And she went out here and she started doing something very novel. She took stories and life experiences and made it into a YouTube web series. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there are a lot of us watching this program who have creative pursuits, or at least the thought of wanting to do something creative, but you're scared, right? Like, you don't want people to know what your internal thinking is. You don't want to expose that you might have some violent tendencies. You might have over sexual tendencies, whatever that you would put in a book, might not necessarily say to people who know you. And so one of the things is, the first step is getting people over the fear. And there's no way to get people over the fear than to connect them with someone who is also doing it, who was also afraid, but who also knows the value of a royalty check and who also knows the value of just seeing people reading your stuff. So for those of you who are interested in writing at any level or any point, I hope you're tuning in. Please come with questions because I don't want to talk the whole hour. Please come with questions.
Oh, Patricia says congratulations, Patricia Long.
Oh, Miss Pat, how you doing, Miss Pat? What's going on?
Oh, that was one of your professors? Or?
No. This is Miss Pat. This is she's like a play mom to me. She is my friend. I don't know, my friends are watching, but Erica, this is her mom. So hey, Miss Pat, how you doing?
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So what got you started? So this is your third book, right? If I'm correct. What got you started in writing? Or what inspired your first publication?
So I've been writing books since I was a kid, but I never thought about putting anything out there. I would just keep it in a journal or share it amongst my friends. I ended up deciding to publish because I was getting frustrated. Like many people, I'm an avid reader, but I like to read things that have characters that I can relate to. So when I go to Barnes & Noble, I'm the type of person, I bypass everything and go to the Black African-American section, right? That's where I go to try to find what I want to read. But I was getting frustrated because every time I would go, I would see the same kinds of books. It would be slavery. It would be Martin Luther King. It would be erotica. No shade to anybody who writes that stuff, but there's more to our story than that. So I would ask the bookseller, I was like, well, look, why can't we have Black people legal thrillers? Why can't we have Black people mysteries? Why can't we have romance? Why can't we have all these things that everybody else seems to get and get published regularly, especially, white authors who personally, in my opinion, aren't that great, who get published all over the place, but we can't get any Black Afro-futurists, no nothing. And then when you go to African literature, our selection of African literature here is very, very small. If it's not Chinua Achebe, it's probably not going to be there, right? So the whole thing about it is I thought you can't just have a whole continent and a whole planet of people that don't have the full breadth of literary experience out here. And so the bookseller told me something very important. He said, we don't have them because either they don't sell or nobody's writing them. So I said, well, I can't control what people buy. I can't control what sells, but I can control if somebody writes them. So I started writing for the purpose of publishing at that point, just to wipe the smug look off his face, because I just felt like it was a white person that didn't want. So the first book I wrote was actually my attempt in what would have been a 7-book series to track a family's lineage, similar to how Alex Haley did Roots, but I took it back to mythology. And my style of writing is I like to commandeer principles that I've seen in other books, but make them Black. Because for some reason, when you make these principles Black, it drives people crazy. It makes people feel like you're taking something, but they took everything from us. So I'm just taking it back. So everything from Greek mythology, I took it back, made the characters Black. So the first book that I put out, it was about a boy in Africa who was trying to trace his family. He was born a twin, and he was in a village, and that village would only honor one twin. His dad was a warlord, and he made his twin boys fight it out to the death. And this guy lost. So he was thrown aside. He was taken in by villagers and raised and trained, and he goes on this venture and trying to figure out, what is he? Who is he? How did he get here? What's his place in the world? And he, as he travels through the continent, figures out so much stuff about himself, but also sees the negative influences of so many different outside cultures that are trying to come in and take away from the continent. And ultimately, it changes who he is. So I had a ball writing that book. I say it was the first of 7 because I wrote the first book and the last book of the series. And the last book will probably never come out, but it was a book called Tavares. And the book was about a black kid in America in the inner city who is continuously getting in trouble, who befriends a guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor actually is familiar with the 6 books prior and the stories to that, and she's connecting him to his heritage. So she's like, you can't get in trouble. You come from greatness. Let me tell you about these people in the first 6 books. And it's like trying to design him to get him off the trail that he's on to understanding his role in the community. So I wrote the first book, the second book, and the 7th book, but 3, 4, 5, and 6, I apologize. It didn't happen.
All right, cool. So let's acknowledge. Miss Pat again said, "I'm great, my play son," and then Michael says, "Congratulations! I'm inspired by your effort. I had earlier seen your book on Amazon."
Oh, thank you, Michael. I appreciate
it. And then Miss Pat says, "Why hadn't we received one of your books, son?"
Yes, she needs them. So this is the first book I think came out in 2013. And the way I do it, just so we can get the writers here to understand, there are different ways to publish. You can submit a manuscript to more like the big ticket publishers, the Penguins, the Random Houses, and you have to do query letters and all that stuff. But you can also do self-publishing. I was never a fan of trying to get corporate validation for the book. There are pros and cons for both. If you can get it, by all means, get your money. Like get all the help you can get. That's great. But for me, it felt like the process was more so about people reading query letters to determine whether or not they're going to read your manuscript, as opposed to reading the manuscript and hearing what's going on. Plus, my perspective is so different from what the corporate industry, kind of like music, they want to market and sell what everybody has already said they love, as opposed to doing something new. So I said, okay, well, I was going to self-publish, and I worked with this company that was brand spanking new at that time, mom and pop company called Lulu. It was right down the street from my house, and they were able to convert it to ebook format, and they had an actual press at that time to print up the hard copies. One of the things I learned very quickly is printing up hard copies is very expensive. So what happens is you have this staggered price rate where your ebook can be cheaper, but the actual hardcover book is going to be ridiculously expensive because it costs them like $15 to make it. So if you're going to drive any kind of profit off of it, you're going to have to add at least $5 to it. And if you add $5 to it, now you got a $20 book. When you look at the market for $20 books, you're up here competing with Stephen King, right? People who've been doing this for 30 years. I'm not there. This was book 1. I wanted a $7 book that people in the hood could get and sit at the barbershop. Like, that's what I wanted. So the ebook was $7. The hardcover ended up being something weird, like $21. And I was impressed with the number of people who bought it anyway, just because they wanted me to be able to sign it. The other thing I'll say is you don't know who's going to get these books. So when I put the book out, my books are very mature. I tell everybody, don't have your kids reading this stuff. It's very mature. But I was shocked because I had a judge in Winston-Salem who actually, I hadn't even told about the book. He called me in the chambers after court and was like, "Hey man, I just recommended your book to everybody in my church and we loved it." And I'm like, what? And sure enough, like I got a newspaper story. They did a whole run of the book and the whole 9. So it was interesting. At the time, my son, who then was like 2 years old, we went to a street fair and they actually had like my book and a paper in the stand. And so he's pointing at the stand talking about dada, dada, dada. And I was like, oh, wow, like, I'm in the paper. That's cool. Yeah. So it was just a degree of success that I didn't necessarily anticipate.
As Michael saying, how do you combine writing with your work?
Oh, it's a great question.
Haya says hi. Hi, Haya.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah. So this is the key. My job is very, very demanding, right? So I'm a clinical professor of law. That means I have teaching responsibilities for 2 classes. One class has 10 students. The other class has 22. I also assign papers, so I'm always, grading stuff. But I also have clients because as a clinical professor, you have to also practice. So I have clients, and because I have clients, there's the cases that need to be managed. The way that I do this is, I don't really sleep a lot. I have this issue where my body doesn't stay asleep longer than 5 hours. So I just take advantage of the time that I'm up. I say, all right, I'm going to do my work in the day because that's the priority. That's paying the mortgage. And then once I finish the work, I take a little break, eat some dinner, have some time with the family. Family typically goes to bed around 9. That gives me from 9 until about 2 in the morning to do what I want. And in that time, when I got my quiet house, I put on some soft music and I just start typing. The other thing I do that I think helps a lot is I don't spend a lot of time on character development because I actually have a journal book of characters, right? So whenever I go places, if I see somebody who looks interesting, or if I'm at the airport and I'm just waiting on a flight, I'll just write down characteristics of a person and put it in a character sketchbook. So when I actually get to writing a book, it's not about me idealizing who this character is going to be. It's just me picking what combination of characters from the character book I want to write about, right? So the work is halfway done. I just have to do the plot, right? So that's the other way that I do it. On top of that, I also have a business where my whole point of the business is to bring on new and exciting Black voices who want to write and put them out there, right? So it's kind of like artist management / helping people get connected to resources, kind of middleman type thing. And this is all because of that experience at Barnes & Noble, right? So I want to wipe the smirk off of this man's face because he doesn't believe that we have talented people in our culture who can do this. So I'm in so doing, we're starting up now, but we're trying to gather, new hopefuls. And I'm not even just limited it to America. I've got someone I'm talking to in South Africa that I think has a really interesting life and trying to convince them to do an autobiography. All right. So to the extent that we can have global reach and get all of our stories into all of our hands, I want to do that. And I want to help people understand the value of making money off of something that you created and something that you put out here. And the last step is ultimately my 10-year goal for that business is I want to be able to convert these stories into something, be it YouTube series, be it TV, be it movies, whatever the case may be, so that we can add more because we're lacking in movies and TV as well. So we've got people who are doing amazing stuff all across the world. I've got a homegirl who's a producer in Hollywood trying to get her on the show. There are people who are doing a lot of amazing stuff that we just don't get to see. And so because of that, my job is to try to pierce whatever Western society I can pierce to get us in there. And then hopefully elevate these voices.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's what G does. She usually, this month is a NaNoWriMo month. So every morning she has a live YouTube video where she types away. She invites other writers to write with her during an hour. I think it's 8:30 to 9:30. Or anytime she gets, it doesn't have to be a set time by any hour. Writing for an hour, it's a lot of time. You could put a lot down. If you do that for just a month, Michael, that's how many 30 hours of writing. You could get your book done in 30 hours, and then the editing and all that can happen later. But yes, you could. It's absolutely possible. I've seen it done by my own wife, Dr. G. I don't know whether she's watching us.
Yeah, NaNoWriMo is a great way to get involved if you aren't used to the exercise. So I tell people, writing is like working out. Like you don't go to the gym the first day and start bench pressing 400 pounds. Like it doesn't work like that. You got to build up. So it's a muscle. You start off small. Some people do poetry, some people do haiku, some people do little things. But NaNoWriMo is cool because you have to do a book in a span of 30 days, right? So it forces you to sit down and every day take an hour out, write a little bit. What writers know, this is the secret that we hold that the world doesn't know, and I'm going to expose it here. What writers know is there's something called a writer's high. So you can be writing something, and then what happens is if it's good, you'll get so involved in what you're writing that you won't even think about the time anymore. it's been times I'll be writing and I'll look up and it's been 4 hours, right? I didn't even realize it because I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. And then you control it and you can type it. And then, oh, I don't like this. I want to add this. And it just, the time flies. The story gets good. So once you get that muscle kind of trained, you're going to be able to do all kinds of writing marathons and you'll be good to go.
Sorry, I'd muted myself. I didn't realize it. So I'm going to put if you want to join us live, you'll be live on YouTube and Facebook. I'm going to put the link out. You could join us for the discussion.
Please do.
Yeah, let me put it out there. All right. So join us for the discussion. And I believe it will be a good thing. I just put out the link. Click on the link and join us for a discussion. All right, so I wanted to let's dive right into your latest publication will be coming out soon.
Absolutely.
Illiumatic.
Yes.
Is that it? So what was the inspiration behind that one? And give us a teaser. Don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No spoiler.
So for those of you who may not know, there was a classic Nas album written. It came out in 1992 called Illiumatic. And it was classic because he didn't have a lot of features. It was just Nas, some little kid who decided he wanted to rap. And he made arguably one of the best rap albums of all time. My title is a play off of that, but it's actually a double meaning. So one part, I think that as far as poetry goes, this is probably the best book of poetry I've ever written. The second part, and yes, Michael, yes, I used to do poetry. I actually was a spoken word poet when I was in college, and I used to write a lot of poetry, but I haven't had a chance to do as much poetry since. This is an epic poem, so it's going to be poetry. Basically, you read the prologue, that's in prose, and then after that, it's all poetry. So this is going to be probably my crown jewel of poetry, and it is also the last work of fiction that I'll be doing for a while because I'm going to cross over into the nonfiction world. But the story is also a double meaning because that title, Illium, is the name that the Greeks had for the Trojans in the Trojan War. And the story is about the Trojan War from the perspective of Paris, right? So people who don't know, if you haven't read the Iliad in a while, you might have to blow some dust off of it. The Iliad was about the Trojan War, and it all started because there was a guy named Paris who, quote unquote, stole someone's wife took her to Troy and started, it got the Greeks upset. So they decided they were going to come and invade and stuff happened. Well, what we never find out when you read the Iliad is you never hear what happens to Paris. Like, you hear what happens to the city. You hear what happens to the heroes in the battle. You even hear about how the Greek mythological gods felt about the different sides. But you don't find out what happened for the person that started this all together. So I said there's a voice there that needs to be amplified. On top of that, in my rendition, the Trojans are black, right? So of course, because that's what I do. So the Trojans are black. It explains why they're talking in poetry, right? Like everything they say is poetic. It also gives you the story from Paris's perspective. So it's someone who essentially is a teenager who is living a great teenage life. And then all of a sudden his actions have consequences that he didn't anticipate. And the story is actually about maturation. Like it's about who you are as a teen and who you become as an adult. So that's the teaser. If you like the Trojan War, if you like hearing about the old Greek gods and goddesses, of course, I've taken them, and for many of them, I have given them African names and made them African gods and goddesses because of that guy at Barnes and Noble. But yes, it's going to be great. I'm working on getting that released, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, and feel free to go. But if you like poetry, and I'm hoping I can get an audiobook of it done too, but that's going to be further down the line because I got to get professionals. I'm not a rapper. But yeah, definitely check it out. I think that, it's an easy read. It is very eye-opening from a different perspective. And I think that it covers a lot of topics that we deal with in our everyday life, particularly when you don't necessarily understand your role or responsibility in the greater society as a child, but you become a man and you have these expectations that your civilization and your community is going to have for you, whether you choose to accept them or not. And it just also dispels a lot of myths, because I didn't like the way they played the Trojans out in the Iliad. So I wanted to make sure they got good representation on this one.
So also, like, I mean, just to add to that, our stories need to be told. Even everyone has a story. Everyone has a unique story. Just your life story, your experience is going to encourage someone. Like, if someone could hear what Michael has been through, why he became a lawyer. He was on the way to being a doctor, and why he became a lawyer. Why he got arrested for some foolish reason, and then he gets released by a lawyer. As soon as once the lawyer showed up, he gets released. Once you put that in the book, it will inspire someone. And just like you say, you get inspired by Jesse. Mikey, your story too will inspire someone in Nigeria. One of the diaspora brethren around the world will get inspired by your story of how you became a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And what I want to do is write my story on my lineage. I'm really passionate about my lineage. I'm sure you saw one of my papers I wrote back in college about the lineage. Yeah, that's what I'm passionate. I'm going to work on that and develop the story and fill the gaps, because when you're in college you don't really have that much time to do a deeper dive into the characters and the chiefs that went before you and all that. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do now.
That's important, man. We need those stories, because one of the things I always get concerned about is with every generation that we lose, those are stories that you can't get back, right?
That's right.
So if you have an opportunity to sit down, I'm working on a project now where we're trying to get all these older attorneys in North Carolina to sit down in front of a camera and talk about what was life like being an attorney in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, being a Black attorney at that. And I think that, there's a market for it. Also, I think for you, it's just great, because for people here in America, we don't connect to any kind of royalty. So it would be nice to see how this works. What does Black royalty look like? And what does it mean? It's like America really sells this image that life starts with slavery. And so everybody is kind of downtrodden and defeated from the beginning, right? And that's the point. That's why they do it. But we know that's not how this journey began. So because we're trying to connect with cultures, in the continent, I think it's great. And this is exactly the kind of voices that I'm looking to do. We want to bridge this gap. So people say, all right, yeah, we might have had a 300, 400 year span where we were, separate and apart, but we can all come together because we're doing greatness in our own respective hemispheres. Mike, what's good with you?
Welcome to the Attorney Extraordinaire, Michael Oyinkuro Prekuma.
Hello, good evening. Oh, sorry, it's evening over here.
Yes, good morning over here.
Yes, it's nice being with you once more. I've been anticipating this program for quite some time. I even sent a message. I thought you guys wouldn't come online today, on air today, pardon. I'm really inspired by the work of JC, given the fact that
I think we lost you, Mike. All right, well, just click that link when you get back set up. Yeah. I think we got you back.
Okay.
Yeah, back.
Okay, like I was saying, I'm really inspired by the work of my brother, JC, given the fact that it's not too easy to switch from being a professor of law to wanting to write and what have you, and the greater responsibility of providing for the family. It's amazing how you have been able to manage that. On the other hand, I find it very difficult to even finish a book. I can recall that, by the way, I'm still in my office. I can recall that earlier this year, before the lockdown, I got an inspiration to write a book by the title The Water That Became Thicker Than Blood. It's a story that, yes, it's a story that is supposed to center around the Niger Delta of Nigeria. Niger Delta is the oil producing region of Nigeria. That is where Bayelsa is.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
I was going to expose the ills in oil production in Niger Delta, how the region has been neglected, how our brothers have sold us out, how our brothers have become enemies and strangers, friends, and all that. But I'm unable to concentrate because part of what I do is to litigate. By the way, 2 days ago, myself and my colleague by name Victor Gbefa Esquire, we got a judgment in our favor in the criminal matter.
Awesome.
The criminal matter.
Congratulations.
Yes,
I'm glad to
thank
hear
you
that.
very much. Those folks have been in prison since 2018, and they were discharged and acquitted. The justice system here is slow. It's slow. If you do a little bit study on it, you know that you could stand the land matter here, and you finish in 20 years' time. The yes, the initiator of those matters could even die in the course of doing the matter, and they will be substituted by their children. It's like that. So back to the book writing. I don't think I have that. No, it's not that if I want to write, I won't be able to do it. But to concentrate for that long, writing for hours. Oh, by the way, I find it very difficult to stay away from harsh language. That is the reason I stay away from Facebook. I mean, writing a post on Facebook, because there's this tendency for me to want to insult things I don't feel comfortable with. That is why some time ago, after the election, I described Donald Trump as a pig. And so, some of my colleagues were very mad at me. My inbox was filled up. I had to pull down that post. Yes, it's a me. I think what I'm going to do is to go ahead and write the book and maybe give it to an editor to edit it. Yes, I think that is all I can do, because I grew up from, I'm coming from a background where my parents got divorced pretty early. I think when I was 3 years plus, or about 4. Yes. So I had to, they did not only divorce, my mom took me to her parents' side, my maternal home, kind of, if I'm allowed to use that word, dumped us, myself and my younger brother, and took my elder sister to somewhere else. So we grew up apart. From there, personally, I was taken to stay with my cousin who was into rice farming. And I went through a lot. Everyone in that home was going to school. I was never opportune to go to school early. I had to start school at the age of 14. I don't know if I mentioned that in our last broadcast. I had to start school at the age of 14. I mean, when I'm in school, any form of schooling at all, learning how to read A, B, C, D at the age of 14, I was rejected by schools. These are worth writing about, but I've never had the opportunity. I've never had the opportunity. I'm into practice. I spend a lot of time here. My 2 kids are home. My woman's are home. Right here. Look at my table. If I'm allowed to do that, look at my table. I'll be in this office working. So it's pretty difficult for me to come and write. I'm amazed by what you are doing. Amazed. But I would like to ask, being a professor of law, if you would like to delve into writing a book that centers on law, the legal profession, rather than do fiction, poetry, and all that, so that the legal profession can benefit. You can add to what other great authors have done in the past. I mean, many of these works are now old, given the fact that we are now in a new era where a lot of things have taken place. For example, when one wouldn't have thought that in recent time, Donald Trump would, a person like Donald Trump wouldn't have considered defeat and congratulate the man on the other side. If it was an African president now, I know the even United States will be on our neck, screaming up and down. Yes, he's a dictator, he's this and that. But America, come on. America is like number one democracy. When you talk about democracies in the world, you're supposed to be a shiny example to others. I love what happened during the election. I love the fact that it was peaceful. I love the fact that it wasn't a civil war like it is in some places in Africa.
Right.
You need to see what happens here during election period. Unfortunately, because of the chaos during election period, we are unable to video it and putting this video out there for people to see what is happening. But the aftermath is usually characterized by destruction of properties and all that, which is not something to write home about. But this election, this past election, the United States election, kind of exposed the hypocrisy in the Western world. It shows that the issue of violence is not peculiar to the African continent. The issue of dictatorship, the issue of wanting to stay put in power like Paul Biya of Cameroon and a host of other African leaders that are now late, like Gaddafi, late Gaddafi, and a host of others. It shows that it's not peculiar to us. One would have expected Trump, since he can still come back in maybe 2024 to vie for the same position, if he's allowed to, one would have expected him to show a kind of example to the rest of the world, particularly these nascent democracies around the world, Nigeria be one of them. That is what I expect from him. So back to, I'm running late, back to the inspiration to write. I do hope that someday I should be able to put down all that is in me. Perhaps maybe 1/3 of what is in me. Obviously, one has to be historical, given my background, right. And others have to be maybe acts of inspiration, like this very one that is in my system. I have not been able to even write the very first page. The water that became thicker than blood, and all that. I just hope so. Someday I should be able to write something that one can find in the Amazon, like my brother has done.
Hey man, it sounds like you have a great idea. I think your title is amazing. I think your story is amazing. I would love to see you get that down and get it out here. I think that part of writing, and I'm making this process to jump from fiction to nonfiction now. So nonfiction is always going to take more time because you have to research and make sure that you have proper citations for everything that you're putting in. It's not like fiction where you can just kind of write off imagination. But my goal with nonfiction is I wanted to go back and do kind of the same thing that you were talking about, the exposure of American democratic hypocrisy, but as it relates to Black America, because a lot of the things that America does isn't representative of Black America, right? And one of the things is that we have overcome so many discriminatory barriers that have been put in place that we had to go through the court system because that was our only outlet for trying to get any form of justice. And because of this, we've got a body of law that doesn't just help Black people in America, but it helps everybody's minority group, right? So Black people kind of set the standard in America for what the country is allowed to get away with. And I think what you're seeing is reflection of that in the election, because Joe Biden won because 87% of Black people voted for Joe Biden. And Donald Trump has never been favorable for us. He's never been good for us. He has emboldened people who are very racist to come back out and take antiquated ideas of racism from the 40s and 50s and try to bring it back in 2020. The fact that half the country still supports him is eye-opening for a lot of us, because these are people who we work with. Like, these are people who we might have thought, okay, well, they're not like that, but apparently they vote like that, right? So because of this, and because of the way that he's being coddled, despite the fact that he lost the election, I also have a theory. I think he's being coddled, and I think that he's exercising this power right now because he's going to get prosecuted as soon as he comes out of the White House. And the person who's going to prosecute him is a black lady who's an attorney in the Southern District of New York. She's been waiting, right? So the only thing protecting him was the presidency. So I think he knows that. I think everybody knows that. And at this point, they're just trying to do what they can to preserve white supremacy over the will of the people. But the fact that Joe Biden won, to me, is the real story, because Joe Biden won because there was a coalition of people from all the minority groups, but particularly Black communities in Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee, who came together and was like, no, we're voting for Joe Biden. We don't necessarily, think that he's going to be the savior of Black America. But at the same time, the levels that Trump has taken this country to is unacceptable. On top of that, we voted for Kamala Harris because that's one of ours. So we want her to be vice president in there. And we have expectations that she's going to look out for us too. So I think there's a lot that we could write about, and I definitely want to do it. And because I know it's going to be time consuming, kind of like what you were talking about, I have to do this last fiction work so I can kind of kiss it goodbye and convert over, because as a law professor, there are certain things academically that I need to be able to bring back to my people to help them understand the different kinds of legal games and political games that are being done really behind their back to continue your oppression. So what you're doing now. That's where I'm trying to go. Right. That's my next step. And I think I want to see your work, Mike. I want to see you publish not just your story, but also this story about the Nigerian Delta states. I wanted to see all that. We need that. Barnes and Noble needs that. Everybody needs to know.
I wanted to get to the comments. So Miss Pat again came back. Jess, I'm gonna order you both books.
Thank
and
you.
then Miss Leah Babe from Periscope says, "Hey guys," and she says she loves this. And Miss Leah, thanks for joining us. I hope you're still there. And then Miss Pat said the sound is back. She said it's froze at a point, but the sound is back.
I'm sorry.
But I wanted to get to Michael. Mike, I think your story is inspirational. Definitely, like I was saying, what Dr. G, my wife, does is she finds about an hour when my son is not up and I'm not up, and she spends that hour, so at least an hour a day, and she's been doing that with the community where she goes live on YouTube and writes about 1,000 words. So for the next month, she's been doing it every day, maybe except Sundays. So she's been doing it every day. And then you can even join them while they are typing away. You can also write your story for an hour, just an hour a day. And you get away, because if you calculate it an hour a day for 30 days, that's 30 hours of writing. You'll be able to do a chunk of your story for us to read and be inspired. Like I say, your story is really inspirational. It inspires somebody starting education at 14 years old. that's a story
Absolutely.
for the books. That's a story for the ages. So definitely, I'll encourage you to do that.
Yeah. You'll get people who want to read that from everywhere, because I think the one thing that I always see in these stores is that because they lack Black stories and because they lack African stories, like the stories are going to be the same. Like we can read a million different ways that Dan Brown has found some new religious artifact. Like we can read that anytime. What you don't read is something that has the depth of emotion and value that comes with just an experience of being on this planet as an African or African American male. Like you need that. African American women as well. Like you need that experience. White people don't even know what we deal with, right? They don't even know what we deal with. And because of that, you know, a story like yours, Michael, I think it'll inspire other people, because the fact that you were able to go from starting education at 14 to being an attorney, that is a major story. First of all, I don't know how common it is there, but here, to be a Black attorney is not very common. We don't have a lot. So that's a big story. Then on top of that, like just who you are, all the things you care about. You have probably a bestseller that you haven't even got on paper yet. So I would just encourage you to keep working on that.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm thrilled. I'm inspired. Like I earlier said, I'll do my best. So long I'm still alive, I'll do my best. I'll try to pull the story out there. Maybe I'll start with that of the one that has to do with my story before delving into another one, because that one is kind of easy. Something I just have to pull out. I have to recall what transpired while growing up. Just put it out there, and I think that will do it. Perhaps after doing one book, there will be hunger for more. You can then start another one. Yes. I think I'll do something. I'll do something in that regard. Thank you so much.
I'm glad to hear it, man. I'm glad to hear it. I look forward to it.
So we'll let you go back to. It seems like you have a lot of work to do.
I know the feeling, man. I got my stats on the
yes, I would like to retire for the day and go back home to my kids. Well, it's a pleasure being here. It's a pleasure interacting with you. I mean, I'm inspired. You don't know what you've done. Don't know what you've done. I'm going to do something that you're going to appreciate today. Today's discussion. I'm going to do something that you feel like I inspired this guy. I was called to bar in 2014, and I've never looked back since then. But you spoke about Chinua Achebe earlier. I don't know. Yes, I had that Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, Chinua Achebe. These are the guys that really inspired me growing up. They inspired me to study literature in English literature. There is a way they divide it here. The English literature in English. They are two different literary works. Yes. So these guys really inspired me. Now, having someone like you that talked to me about the need for me to write and tell the world my story, I'm really inspired. I'm thrilled. I must confess that inspiration is something that is in short supply over here, because you have to look out for yourself and your immediate family. You know what it is economically to take care of an African family over here. You are working for your nuclear family. Others are sending messages and calls. So you just have to keep on working and working like a donkey until you are out of time. You're too old to even look after yourself. So I'm inspired by, I'm inspired by your words of encouragement. Fred, I'm inspired by what you said about the childhood story of mine. I'm going to do something about it. I mean, my siblings were equally affected by this story, I believe that they will contribute one or two things. One of them is an accountant now in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, Nigeria. Yes, I believe that they will contribute. I'll talk to them about it and see where we can start from, because the story is complicated. We have to, there are some things we have to leave out of the book, take out of public consumption, sort of. Yes. Okay. Thank you, guys, for having me.
Thank you.
I'm grateful for this opportunity. I look forward for another chat. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Sure. Thanks for the support. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so that was Michael Prekumo. Thanks for joining us. So, Miss Pat, thank you for your support. She says, very informative program. Enjoying you, young men. We enjoy you staying with us this time. And hey, Kechi, thanks for joining us.
Yay!
She's another inspiration, a mom of two who does it all.
Yes, and her food blog. I don't know if have we already plugged her food blog? You need to look at her food. It's amazing.
Yeah, she has a lot of healthy alternatives to the foods we enjoy. So she has this. I'll put a link up later once we're done. She has what we call cauliflower mac and cheese. So instead of the regular mac and cheese, so it's cauliflower mac and cheese, which I'm gonna try because it's less calories and it's a little healthier. Yeah, so definitely. And then she has brown rice jollof rice, or I should say brown jollof rice. So instead of the regular rice, she uses the brown rice to make a jollof rice. So all those alternatives, you can check her out on, just Google her name and you'll be able to find it. Okay, so I guess we'll be winding down here. Any last words of inspiration, Jesse, since you inspired all the way from Delta States?
Yeah, man. Well, I'm just happy to hear that. I think one of the things that we don't often value enough is our own personal life experiences. And you never know how what you've been through could affect or influence someone else who may pick that book up to read it. So I think the first step is get your life experience or whatever you want to write about, get it on paper first, form your thought, write the paper out, see what it is, see where you want to go with it. The second thing is publishing and writing are two different things, right? So once you write, you're writing to kind of get this muscle developed and get comfortable. But when you're dealing with publishing, you have to figure out a couple things early on. So one, if you're going to go try to get kind of the big chain publishing companies, the Random Houses, all that stuff, they're going to want to see it look a certain way. They're going to want to have certain stuff, you got to be able to find they call it the hook that you want them to have that's going to sell, right? You might even have to prove to them that it will sell. So they might want to see a book of sales or some experience doing this before. If you can get there, great. They're going to give you a bigger royalty check. You're going to be able to have support. That's great. But I don't want you all to think that's the end all be all, and that if you don't get your book picked up by Penguin, you're screwed. No, it's tons of self-publishing options out here. Self-publishing is also great because you get to keep the lion's share of the royalty money that you make off the book, which if you're publishing, you're doing it because you want to generate some sort of revenue. You don't want it to just be a free thing. I mean, you could, but if you're publishing, you probably want to get some kind of revenue. And the last thing, and I say this almost all the time when we talk about writing, there is no feeling in the world that feels as good as getting a royalty check. I've got many checks for many, many different things, right? But it's something about getting a check for your own talents and abilities and somebody caring enough about you and caring enough about what you have to say to buy a book and read it and give you feedback on it. I mean, that stuff's gold. But then you get paid for it. So that's like, it's a check. Like the feeling is great. It's going to be addictive. The checks don't stop because your books are out here forever, right? So if Oprah decides that she's going to pick it up 4 years from now, and now it's Oprah's, one of her favorite things, well, guess what? Guess who's going to benefit from that? It's going to be you. So we've had G on before to talk about the different ways that you can go with promotions and how to get your name out there. But definitely, if you haven't subscribed to her YouTube channel, make sure you do that as well. You have to have a plan when you're coming out here for publishing and promoting. But aside from that, just write. The key is write. If you can build up a library of stuff that you like to read, chances are there's somebody else out here who will want to read it as well. And just get ready to put your work out here and be known. Don't be scared. Even if you are scared, like you don't have to make it intensely personal unless you're doing something autobiographical, right? Yeah. It doesn't have to be intensely personal. Or if you want to write about something autobiographical, but you don't want to put yourself out there, write fiction and just make a character that represents you and put yourself through whatever the plot that you want to draw up. So I just want to see more Black people. My goal here, if you don't take anything else away from this episode, I want to see Black people on the shelf at Barnes & Noble. I don't want to go to Barnes & Noble anymore and they tell me, oh, there's no mysteries here. Black people don't write mysteries, or Black people don't write romance. Black people don't write anything. All we write is slavery, Martin Luther King, and erotica. I don't want to hear that anymore. I want to see everything, the whole gamut of fiction and nonfiction work, so that we can inspire each other, so that we can continue to grow, and so that we can prove to these people that we are the creator of all things, right? We have done it all. And we, starting with Timbuktu and moving on down to all the colleges we got now, we are the creator of all of this, and we are the masters of it as well. And I want to see you all writing. Last thing, if you do write something and you're putting it out, please, please, please send us a message, shoot us a Facebook post, something, so that we can promote and we can put it out there, because the more people who know about it and know that you're there, the more that we can get you some sales, and the more that you'll get your name known, and we can open up the door for more people writing from our perspectives.
Absolutely right. You can come on here and join us and promote yourself. And, I wanted to hop back on what you said about going to Barnes & Nobles or even to the library. I'm tired of going there and having to order my book. I have to order my book and say, okay, we don't have it, but we could order
right.
what I wanted to read, because they will not have maybe the biography of Kwame Nkrumah, or they not have Seize the Time, or they might not have, the what they call the autobiography of Malcolm X. Or, all those books are not there, so I have to order it and wait 2 weeks before I get it, and they might not have all of it. I might order 3 books, they might have 2 and not have one, and it's a little frustrating not going, because I should be able to walk into a store and just find whatever I want. Absolutely. And I saw that in Ghana there was a lady who used to live in the UK who's established a library, African library of our authors. So she has authors like Malcolm X and Kwame Nkrumah, Dr. Martin Luther King, and all the great Toni Morrison, and all the great authors of years past. And and the small section is the other authors, which is the white authors. They have a small section for them, because that's what happens to the libraries you go, or the bookshops you go. Our authors are in the small section, right in the corner, right? Which you might you're not going to see the Chinua Achebe's and Wole Soyinkes. They're going to be all the way in the back. So I was really inspired by that. I watched a YouTube video about that, and I'd like to go check it out someday, very soon.
Absolutely. Well, the Chinua Achebe, we've got it now to a point where, at least for my school district, it was required to read Things Fall Apart. But like just to not even have a grasp on what is coming out of the continent, when that there's a million stories that are right there. Like I just don't understand. And so to me, it feels like it's a blatant attempt to try to keep people voiceless. That's what it sounds like to me. But at the same time, I can't prove that. So the only thing I can do is produce. And as we produce and we go through the hurdles and we try to see if we can get people into these showcase, spots in these big time bookstores or whatever, great. And I want to see, my goal is to be there only because everything I've read, I used to go to little, small, intimate, kind of like what you were talking about, intimate Black bookstores. And that's where you get your stuff from like Elijah Muhammad and all that. Like you can get that. But I want to see them invest the time in the, Black graphic artists, Black writers, whatever. Put all my covers from this point forward are going to have a Black artist or an African artist doing the work. That's just the way it's going to be. Shout out to Katie Joseph for the artwork she did for Illiumatic. And I'm looking forward to seeing her get some credit and additional people coming to her. But I want to see us in these positions because I know that we do it and I know we do it better. So I want to see us out here. There's nothing stopping us. Put out the product. Let's do it. Let's go to the day that we can scrape off Barnes and Noble and put McCoy and Nantra.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So this is a Pan-Africanist show. Thanks for joining us again. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to our channel. Hit the subscribe button, and you get updates from us. And don't forget to like our Facebook page, and also you can get one of these dope T-shirts from from our Spreadshirt shop. You can get the winter is here already. It's getting cold. It's already fall. You can get sweaters, hoodies, and all that from there, all that good stuff. And then we also have female versions. So it's not only these kinds, we have different versions. So thanks for joining us again. Have a good weekend. Join us again next week. Bye-bye.